I want to try something out to see if I can get the story read by me. I've written the story many years ago, but published it recently. I wouldn't say really recently, like roughly 3 years ago or so. But basically, I this is my passion project, so I've written a lot of episodes, and there is currently about 3 novels in the actual in Tapas, and then roughly 4 in the Inkitt, because it's just how the layout was made for this novel of mine. And I'm hoping that this will be as fun for me as it is for everybody else, but it is a haul of a story. So, but I am very proud of where I am at, and I would like to share that same pride with anybody who would be willing to listen. Just a reminder, the story is rated for mature audience, so just be advised when I read the story that there'll be certain sensitive subjects that YouTube might not like too much either, but basically just viewer discretion advised. Now I'll be reading the synopsis of the story. Erathia is a vast world filled with magic, piracy, and more. In this world, there are an array of selections of characters, with the main focus being Rhea Knox and Captain Connor. Rhea Knox is a wild woman who is trying to find a place in this world. How can she, when the society she faces treats her race as nothing better than slaves? Not only that, but a religion that sees her powers as blasphemous. Finding her true new home will be harder than she predicts, with a trail full of grief and rage laid before her. Connor is the pirate captain of a renowned nightmare maiden. He has a secret behind his copper eyes and a goal that can very well end his life. A man reaching for the deepest of watery caverns to the highest points of mountains. A man that is great tactician but fails to see what is the most important. Will it be too late for him by the time he notices what's at stake? Their paths will cross as ordained. The question is, will they be able to crawl out before they get swallowed up by Erathia? Alright, then it's time to start the story, and I'll be reading the first episode, which is gonna be starting with Rhea's perspective at a certain point of age. You'll see. Here we go. So, many eons ago, before the rock of the mortal realm was ever founded and revitalized to inhabit mortal kind, there were 3 very ancient brothers inside the expansive galaxy. Manuk, the fiery star of the 3, Chemuk, the thunderous one with many elements imploding on himself, and Anukrin with this chilling presence that formed the ice asteroids around him. The 3 traveled the glittery starry expanse for more than a millennium with no sense of purpose or understanding of their existence. The only thing that was constant was their relationship with each other, and that they must keep moving. One day, Chemuk grew weary of his travels and decided to take refuge on a lone rock that floated aimlessly like any other. Upon taking a seat on this rock, Chemuk element made it grow and shape into this lifeless sphere. It amazed the other 2 brothers. To them, Chemuk unintentionally created something so extraordinary in the sea of stars just because he stopped. The other 2 brothers halted their voyage and discarded their urge to keep moving, expecting this new project. Manuk used his molten body to fuel the sphere, giving its life within but too hot on the surface for anything more. Unlike their 3rd brother, Chemuk and Manuk were ecstatic about their progress. Anukrin did not rejoice with the 2, finding this ball is not worthy of it unless he planted his own touches. His ice touch chills the surface, making it hospitable for the rain that follows suit. Rain brought in plants that help sustain life. The place is named Erathia, and it will become the 3 brothers' playground. It's the very reason why we exist now, if you can believe that, cub. A deep, soft voice manages to pierce through the night chorus. Tonight is a very sultry day. Oh goodness. Tonight is a very sultry day with the humidity thick enough to add a layer of water right above the skin. The night singers churn their beautiful music, sharing the space of noise with the howling cry of few night singers in the distance. The tall jungle trees rope around this empty field, leaving a perfect opening to the star-filled sky above. The two half-crested moons are about to cross each other for what is known as the official handshake of the gods. It happens after every second birth moon of a young teenager. This is her 8th moon crossing alive, and she only recalls 3 of them, but her father swears by it. This young teen is a scrawny little female with barely any assets that can prove that she was either gender. Also wore leather clothing to cover herself modestly. Her leather padded top and bottom were thick enough to cover herself and to make her sweaty. She hated wearing clothes that's thick during this season. It shows in her pouting expression. Short brown curly locks bounced above her head whenever the gusts came through, with the obvious tints of red blending within the fade of black like embers in a campfire. Besides the unique coloration of her hair, her eyes glitter silver like the moons above their heads. Skin as dark as brown of her leather top, but nowhere as dark as the shadows of the jungle that surround them. A man stood before her where she decided to slouch on the ground with the weight of her latest angst on her spine, her father. He didn't exactly look like her, or at least she didn't carry much of his resemblance. Bright red hair stopping just at his shoulders, dancing wild in the wind and thick despite the straightness. He is a man of skin that can stand out in the darkest of hours, with freckling along the exposed shoulders and neck from all the times his skin took in too much sunlight. Maybe around 74 inches in height, and his lankiness is the one thing that resembles him the most, but the many years of fighting to survive showed beneath the translucence of his skin. Power resonated out of his muscles like a heated drum, that she could only truly pinpoint the origins or could visibly see it. All she could tell, beneath the upward curl of his whiskered lip, was that he had enough time in this humid world to conquer even the most temperamental beasts, including one that shared a long enough moment to create this teenager a few moons crossings ago. His sky blue eyes never wandered from the moons. Both fists were placed on his belted hips, and the oversized leather shirt hung loose on his thin frame. He was not particularly good at keeping weight on, as her mother would claim in the neutral tone, but no illness ailed him. Another trait that seems to have passed on to this teenager, only that she could control mana. The life force that warms spot everybody, words the soul into action and helps create new life. This mana is a heat that comes out of her in the form of destructive fire, a skill that comes out without her consent due to her latest changes in her. The changes that a young woman like her is enduring painstakingly. Changes that only her mother can half understand, since she was never born with mana ready at her fingertips. This heat sprouts a fire between her fingers, moving the afflicted hand and shoving it into the dew grass next to her. The fire sizzles out, loud enough for her father to perk his head just slightly. Rhea, do you understand why I am telling you this story? Papa, this story does not change every time you tell me, and I am done hearing it. Rhea did not control the groan that escapes the depth of her chest. Her father had many stories, and a few she cared less for. The creation of the Erethia is the most foolish one of all, and yet her father is obsessed with reminding her about it in all different languages. Today, he decided to speak to her pearly and Cryovan. The words always seemed to dance off their tongue like an ancient song, even more ancient than the night singers out there. Until you can cite this before I do, then I will never stop. Fine, Rhea let out another groan. She allows herself to lay on the wet grass, and her hotter body sizzles up the rain dew. Her aggravation burns her body. The godly brothers bind their contract in the crossing of the moon. Contracts are never one of the same, but the first is always unbreakable. The contract of continual protection, one fails that others too will support them. I don't understand how that can answer my question. Clearly I have to tell it again. Her retort made her father laugh, one filling with much joy despite the he's dealt with a tyrannical young lady. He now peers away from the cosmic phenomenon, moving to hover over her and displaying his big grin underneath all that face gruff. His beard is trimmed close to his chin line. Always felt like a big Tigro mane when he nuzzled her too aggressively in the past. Her father has no concept of not go after her at any point of the day. Okay, so concept to do not. Okay, Fire Cub, look in your mind. Again, how does this? She swings her arms out forward, showing the mist that evaporates from her arms. It was always strange that she could dry herself while her mother could not have anything to do with the creation of Arathia. I just asked you why I can't do this, and you went on about. He pulls her up with an arm, which jolts her out of her rants. He hid the strength somewhere in his lanky frame. Not even her 62-inch burning body slowed him. He moves her on her feet and ignores the obvious burns from touching her, even patting the crown of curls on her head. He never shows pain when he touches her during these episodes. Strangely, his skin heals in mere breaths when he's scalded from the sun alone without any rhyme or reason. While her mother prepared the stone sticks to get Rhea's attention, her father could easily deal with her bouts of power. Another question he loves to answer in random philosophical stories. He did not miss a step, pointing his finger to his temple. Everything goes back to the birth of Arathia. There have been over 1 million crossings. In contrast, instead, one involves your powers, Fire Cub. I am too old to accept that answer. Rhea did not let her annoyance go, glaring at her father with all of it. Her hot arms crossed over her leather-covered chest, burning a large spot wherever her skin touched the fabric. Fire sprouts on her right shoulder to prove that her current clothes are next to perish before her voidant father. That you clearly are. Time has not slowed once, and yet I remember when you bellowed so loud in your mother's arms like yesterday. You rocked the very walls of the cave. Enough, Papa. She really could not take another reteller of a birth story. Just like the birth of Arathia, he finds no limit to vomiting these phrases. There are only two people that must listen, her mother and herself. Neither are ever thrilled to hear about his fanatical retellings. Oh, fine. His eyes smile with his lips, his hand reaching to pinch her cheek as a form of aggressive endearment they shared. She flinches, buckling under the action like a mere child. Even her fire dissolves. It was the perfect cure-all for an angsty teenager. Though her father did not keep pinching her, petting her head again, it always follows suit with a head pat. What's going to happen when Rhea becomes too old even for that? My dear Rhea, your mother and I need a little more time to explain everything. His expression suddenly darkens, a very strange expression. He rarely opens to being negative around Rhea, and even less so his rage. Her parents seldom argued, keeping their disagreement either hushed conversations or looks that only they can decipher. They had to be creative when the three of them had to share a small stone hide out together with little to no soundproof. Then at least tell me this. Why did you leave the world out there? Rhea wants the truth at least to rest easier tonight. Her emotions are out of control, even pushing this question onto her mother, who answers simply that the world is not ready for people like them. A simplified excuse. Typical of a mother with the mind and heart of a chieftain. Looks like my hot-headedness moved into my daughter's brain. I was looking for that. Her father did his nose wrinkle on the simple jest whenever he wants to change the subject. She is not a fool, trying to elbow him, but he blocks it with a hand weathered from a life of hardship. He's never caught off guard by her. Maybe when she was younger, he might have let things slide, but now she had to deal with her father as an adult, with a mysterious set of skills and battle born from the moment that she could raise her fist. I did not mean to strike a nerve. Sorry, my cub. Tell me, Papa. A smoke billows out of her nose and between her clenching teeth. A common side effect of mages. Put that away and I will. Her father still had a lot of authority over her. Flames or not, he will easily put her in her place. He proves that to her just 2 days ago. If it were not for her impeccable healing, the bruise would still be there from training. Understood, she said on the grass, cross-legged, and thought about how her mana is nothing more than a stream that flows and never stays in one place. The warmth that concentrated on her hands and face moves evenly through her like a steady web of streams. It is a lot harder with General Grievousness hanging over onto her swell of power. She took a long time to improve this practice, a fact that her father points out regularly. Her eyes stay shut, and she could hear him crunch the grass next to her to sit. He's not fearful of her struggles. Think of mana as simply the flow of water. Although Gemuk rules the water, being Manuk's brother gives the element in mana very similar viscosity. Shush, you're ruining my focus, she gripes. But no matter that, what her current feelings are, his teachings always helped. Even here, her mana felt more in control. Ready? He asked, not really waiting for her to answer, just starting his next tale. Long ago, there were sages. Not this about world sages, Rhea snaps, opening her eyelids to show him a very pointed stare. And that's it, guys. So I hope you enjoy yourselves. There's a lot to this story already in the first episode, and I had to cut it off pretty early too. But I wanted to go back to the image you saw at the beginning and thank the Sushi for making that art for me. It was like one of my first commissions, and she did a great job making that art. And I actually have the link to her DeviantArt, and I'll post it here. But this is it so far, and I hope you guys like it. Till next time. Bye.